Welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to be tackling Daniel Yergin's The New Map, energy, climate, it's all in there, and a whole lot more.
Yeah, it's not just like your typical energy book, it really gets into like the power dynamics, the global chess game.
Exactly. Yergin kind of lays out this argument that energy is power, and whether you're in procurement, supply chains, or even marketing, this stuff matters. Big time.
It's fascinating how he connects things like a pipeline in Russia to, the price of bread at your grocery store.
Okay, so let's start with the shale revolution. Yergin talks about how it basically transformed the U.S. into a leading energy producer, like almost overnight.
Yeah, the shale boom, I mean, it really did kind of flip the script. The U.S. went from being a major importer to an exporter, and that has huge implications for global trade.
But is this new energy independence really all it's cracked up to be?
Yeah.
What are the potential downsides?
Well, Yurkin argues it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? On one hand, it gives the U.S. more leverage in negotiations. But on the other hand, it creates new vulnerabilities. What if domestic production slows down? Or the environmental impacts of fracking become a bigger issue?
Right. So maybe not so simple. And then there's the whole geopolitical angle. Yergin's comparison of Russia and China's energy strategies is pretty eye-opening.
For Russia, it's very clear that energy is a weapon, like a tool to exert influence, especially in Europe.
So imagine you're working in procurement, trying to source materials from, say, Eastern Europe. Suddenly you're not just dealing with market forces, you've got these geopolitical tensions to factor in.
Right. And then you contrast that with China. They're taking a different approach. With the Belt and Road Initiative, they're investing in infrastructure all over the world.
But some people see that as a way for China to secure its own energy needs,
Mm.
right? And maybe even expand its global influence. It makes you realize that procurement and supply chains are way more complex than they used to be.
Definitely. There's so much more at play now. And I wonder, does Jurgen give enough attention to the smaller players in all this? It's all about these big power moves, but
What about the countries that rely on energy exports for their survival? Could this shift actually worsen global inequality?
right, right. It's a good point. It's definitely something to consider.
Okay. And then there's the elephant in the room, climate change. Jurgen does talk about renewables and decarbonization, but I feel like he might be underestimating the challenges of this transition. I mean, scaling this up globally, it's mind-boggling.
Absolutely. Jurgen acknowledges the urgency, but it's not just flipping a switch.
And for those of you listening who are in marketing, this is huge. Consumers are demanding sustainable products, transparent supply chains. Greenwashing won't cut it anymore.
Right. Brands are going to have to walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
And then there's the whole digitalization of energy that Jurgen talks about. Smart grids, data analytics, blockchain. What does all that even mean for someone who's not like a tech expert?
I mean, think about it. We're moving toward a system where energy can be managed in real time, where you can track your energy consumption down to the minute, where blockchain could even change how we buy and sell energy. It's going to disrupt everything.
Okay, so we've got all these exciting innovations coming down the pipeline. But are they actually solutions or just more potential disruptions? How do we even plan for a future where today's hot technology could be obsolete tomorrow?
Jurgen's point is that they're both. They're disruptors, A&D potential solutions. The key is to be adaptable, constantly learning, reassessing, and adjusting your strategies. Think about the skills you'll need in 5 years, in 10 years. Are you preparing for that level of change? It's really about, preparing for those things you just can't predict.
The black swan events, right? The things that nobody sees coming, but completely change the game. Like what a pandemic.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody predicted COVID, but it obviously had a huge impact on everything. Oil prices went crazy, supply chains went haywire.
Right, but I wonder, does that kind of let us off the hook? I mean, was our reliance on those fragile global supply chains really inevitable?
That's a good point. And it kind of leads into one of Jurgen's key strategies for dealing with all this uncertainty: diversification.
Diversification, you mean like not putting all our eggs in one basket?
Exactly. Whether it's energy sources, supply chains, or even like your investment portfolio, spreading out the risk is crucial.
Okay, I'm following you. So let's say you're a company that relies on one supplier for a critical component. What happens if that supplier is suddenly out of the picture?
well, you're in trouble. Your whole operation could come to a screeching halt.
Right, so diversification is key.
Yeah.
What else can we do to prepare for these unexpected events? What about all those what-if scenarios?
Yergin talks about scenario planning. Instead of trying to predict the future, which is impossible, you develop a range of plausible scenarios, each with its own set of challenges and opportunities.
So you're saying we should be playing out all these different possible futures in our heads,
Right.
even some that seem pretty unlikely.
Exactly. Like, what if a major cyber attack shuts down global trade? What if some crazy new technology makes your entire product line obsolete? Thinking through these things in advance can really help you handle those unexpected situations.
That's kind of a cool exercise, actually.
Right.
Get your team thinking outside the box. But how do you go beyond just brainstorming? How do you turn those scenarios into actual plans?
So once you've got your scenarios, you start asking, okay, how would we respond to this? What specific actions would we take? What resources would we need? Like, let's say you're a food producer and one of your scenarios is a sudden spike in fertilizer prices.
Oh, yeah, that'd be bad.
Right. So maybe you start exploring alternative farming methods or diversifying your suppliers or even investing in new technology like vertical farming.
That's a really good example. Makes this whole scenario planning thing a lot less abstract and a lot more applicable.
Exactly. And by anticipating those challenges, you can not only mitigate risks, but you might even uncover some new opportunities along the way.
Okay, I like it. But, we talked about how Yergin focuses a lot on those big players, the US, Russia, China. Isn't that a problem if we really want to understand this new map?
Yeah, I think that's one of the valid critiques of the book. He does tend to focus on those big powers, the ones that dominate the headlines. But the truth is, the energy landscape is being shaped by things happening all over the world.
So what are we missing when we only look at the big picture? What are some examples of smaller countries making a difference?
We might miss the nuances, the local dynamics, the unexpected disruptions that can come from unexpected places. Like, think about renewable energy. Yergin talks about solar and wind, but he doesn't really delve into how smaller countries are driving a lot of the innovation.
I just assumed that was being led by the big economies, China, Europe.
They definitely play a big role, but some of the most interesting and ambitious policies are coming from places you might not expect. Look at Costa Rica. They've been running on almost 100% renewable energy for years. Or Denmark. They're a world leader in wind power.
So these smaller countries are showing that it is possible to transition to a cleaner energy future, even on a smaller scale. But can they really compete with the big guys?
They might not have the same resources, but they can be more nimble, more adaptable, and sometimes that allows them to leapfrog ahead, to adopt new technologies faster.
That's fascinating. So it's not just about size and resources. It's about being willing to embrace new solutions. But how can we stay informed about all this? There's so much information out there, it's hard to know where to even start.
It's true, information overload is a real problem, but there are good resources out there. Organizations like the International Energy Agency, the International Renewable Energy Agency, they provide a lot of data and analysis. There are also publications that focus on specific regions or technologies.
Okay, good to know. And of course, there are podcasts like this one trying to break it all down.
Right, right. The key is to be curious. Look for information from different sources and be willing to challenge your assumptions.
All right, that's good advice. But even with all the information in the world, we're still facing some huge challenges with this energy transition. How do we stay motivated? How do we keep pushing forward when things feel, well, kind of bleak?
I think Yergin offers us a little bit of hope. He reminds us that human ingenuity, it's our greatest asset.
Yeah, but that's kind of a broad statement. What does he mean by that exactly?
Well, throughout history, humans have faced incredibly difficult challenges, and we found ways to overcome them. We invent new technologies, we adapt, we find solutions that seemed impossible.
So you're saying we do have the potential to solve this energy crisis,
Yeah.
to address climate change, to create a more sustainable future. But, is that really realistic?
I think it is. It won't be easy, but I believe it's possible. It's going to require collaboration, innovation, and a willingness to embrace change. But Yergin's book shows us that we've been here before. We've faced tough challenges and found a way through.
This time feels different, though. It's not just about technology. It's about changing entire systems and behaviors.
You're right. And that's another key takeaway from the book. This energy transition, it's not just a technological challenge, it's a societal one.
Okay, so what does that mean for someone listening right now? How do we go from just recognizing the problem to actually being part of the solution?
I think we need to fundamentally change the way we think about energy, how we consume it, produce it, and value it.
Right. But that's easier said than done.
Yeah.
We're talking about massive systemic change. Where do we even begin?
It's true, it won't be easy. But Yergin points to a few key things. First, we need strong political will. Governments need to enact policies that support the energy transition, incentivize investments in renewables.
Right. We need our leaders on board,
Yeah.
or nothing's going to happen. What else?
We also need public support. People need to understand how urgent this is and be willing to make changes in their own lives to reduce their carbon footprint.
Right. But, it's one thing to support clean energy in theory. It's another to actually pay more for it, to change your habits, to maybe even give up some of the comforts you're used to.
I know, it's tough. But I think people are becoming more aware of what's at stake. We're seeing the impacts of climate change everywhere we look. And I think that's starting to shift public opinion.
I hope you're right. But even with all that, there's still the question of money. Transitioning to a clean energy economy is going to take a ton of investment. Can we realistically afford to do it?
Well, Yergin argues that investing in clean energy will actually be more cost-effective in the long run. Fossil fuels are becoming more expensive to extract, to transport, not to mention the environmental costs.
So it's not just an environmental issue, it's an economic one too.
Yeah.
But let's be real. There are going to be setbacks, there are going to be challenges. How do we stay motivated when things get tough?
I think it comes back to that idea of human ingenuity. We have the ability to solve problems, to innovate, to adapt, and we have a responsibility to do it. The future of the planet depends on it.
Wow, that's a powerful thought. It's a good reminder that this isn't just about energy. It's about something much bigger.
Exactly. It's about our relationship with the planet, our responsibility to future generations, and creating a world where everyone has access to clean, affordable energy.
We've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
I feel like I've taken a crash course on the future of energy.
Me too. And that's what's so great about Yergin's book. He takes these incredibly complex topics and makes them accessible, engaging, and relevant.
It's definitely a book I'm going to recommend to everyone I know. But even with all this new knowledge, I'm still left with some uncertainty about the future. Where do you think we're headed? A more sustainable future, or are we just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic?
That is the big question, isn't it? I think Yergin is cautiously optimistic. He sees the challenges, but he also sees the incredible progress that's being made.
So there's hope. But it's going to take a serious effort from all of us to make it happen.
Absolutely. Businesses, governments, individuals, we all have a role to play.
Before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to go back to those black swan events we were talking about.
Yeah.
We talked about the pandemic, but what other surprises could be lurking out there? Things that could completely rewrite the map.
That's a great question. What if there's a major technological breakthrough we haven't even thought of yet? Or a sudden shift in global alliances? What if climate change accelerates faster than we anticipate? These are all possibilities we need to be thinking about.
Okay, those are some pretty big what-ifs.
Yeah.
It's kind of overwhelming to think about all the potential disruptions. How do we approach this uncertainty without getting totally freaked out?
I think it's about finding the right balance. We need to be aware of the risks without letting them paralyze us. Instead of trying to predict the future, we should focus on building resilience and adaptability.
So less about fixating on specific events and more about being ready to respond to whatever comes our way.
Exactly. It's about developing the right mindset, being flexible, agile, and always learning.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not about having all the answers. It's about having the skills to navigate the unknown.
You got it. And that's really where Yergin's insights are so helpful. He helps us understand the forces at play, the potential disruptions, and the choices we face in this crazy, constantly changing world.
So we talked about a lot of potential disruptions, good and bad. But what about the big picture? If we were to draw a new map of this whole energy landscape, what would it even look like?
It would definitely be a map that's, well, it's always changing, right? New players are popping up, alliances are shifting, and technology is just reshaping everything. But I think we can already see some key features emerging.
Like what? What really stands out to you?
Well, for one, it would be a map with multiple centers of power. You know, the days of one superpower calling all the shots, those are over. We're moving toward a world where power is more distributed.
With countries like China and India playing a much bigger role.
Exactly. And they're not necessarily following the same playbook as the old guard.
So we've got this multipolar world. What else?
I think the most obvious feature would be the emphasis on clean energy. The shift to a low-carbon economy, that's already happening. And it's gaining momentum all the time. The costs of renewables are going down, governments are enacting new policies, investors are pouring money into the sector.
So does that mean fossil fuels are done? Like, is this the beginning of the end for oil and gas?
I think it's the long-term trend, but it's not going to be a sudden shift. Fossil fuels will still be around for a while, especially in developing countries where energy demands are growing so fast. But the future, yeah, I think that belongs to clean energy.
But it sounds like it's going to be a messy transition. All these different energy sources, competing interests. I don't see a clear path forward.
You're right. It's not going to be a straight line. There will be bumps along the way for sure. Some will benefit, others will lose out. And a lot of it, well, we just can't predict it.
We're kind of navigating uncharted territory here.
That's a good way to put it. And that's really where Yergin's book helps. He doesn't give us all the answers, but he gives us a way to think about it all.
A framework, right? To understand the forces at work, the potential disruptions, the choices we need to make.
Yeah, exactly.
He's given us a compass to help us navigate this new world.
And maybe the most important takeaway is that in a world that's constantly changing, being able to adapt, to learn, and to deal with uncertainty, that's more important than ever.
So everyone listening out there, embrace the uncertainty, stay curious, and don't be afraid to explore. We all have a part to play in shaping this future.
Well said.
And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive.
It's been a great conversation.
Thanks for joining us.
I'm sure we'll be talking about all this again soon. This new map is definitely not finished yet.
Absolutely. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and stay engaged.